Hello everyone, my name's Lynn Scamella and welcome to my podcast, Fruitful Conversations, where we talk to people who share their stories to teach and inspire us to be better versions of ourselves. I'm delighted to introduce part 2 of my conversation with Ciaran Gribbin, Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter, lead singer of INXS, and founder of corporate musical team building company Rock and Roll Team Building. Now, in part 1, we talked about Ciaran's sometimes turbulent upbringing in Northern Ireland and his early days in music. In today's podcast, we talk Grammys, fame, and what it was like to step into the shoes of Michael Hutchens. One of the things I love best about Ciaran is his total lack of pretentiousness. Enjoy the perennially charming Ciaran Gribbin. You received a Grammy nomination for Madonna's worldwide hit Celebration, which you co-wrote with her and English producer Paul Oakenfold. Now, that sounds like a really big break. So give me an idea of how that happened.
I'd come to the end of my 20s. I just turned 30, and I'd finished up with the band that I was in, Leia, for 7 years. And I said to my manager at the time, Bob in London, Bob Young, who's a songwriter himself from Status Quo. He wrote a lot of hits for Status Quo. So
Stop! I have to ask you. He didn't do the Down Down, did he?
He did Down Down. So that bloody Coles advertisement that we're all listening to, that my manager Bob Young is responsible.
That's fantastic. He is probably the richest songwriter in the world.
Yeah, he does all right.
Okay, please go on.
Yeah, so Bob, I said to Bob, look, I just want to songwrite. I'm 30 now, I'm getting married, and I want to sort of settle down a little bit. I've had my fill of tour buses and touring, and I want to be out there writing and collaborating with different styles of music. I don't care what style it is, country, jazz, blues, dance music, EDM, whatever you fire at me, I'll write. So I'd still live in Northern Ireland. I built a house at the time, and I would fly in Monday to Friday and go around London at different songwriters, different studios, producers, and work with these writers. And after a period of a very short piece of time, like we're talking at least less than a month, I was writing with a guy called Ian Green, and Ian did all of Paul Oakenfold's productions, all like banging dance house tracks and stuff, and remixing. And we wrote over a period of 3 or 4 days. We probably wrote 4 or 5 songs, and Oakenfold loved what we did. And one of those tracks went on an Oakenfold dance record. And he then played what we did to Madonna, who was a friend of his, and that's how this happened. It was just right place,
like that,
the right time, and that was my first real taste of success. When I say yes, I'd stood in festivals, and yes, I did songs on the radio, but for me, that was the first real revenue stream of money coming in, royalty checks.
Yes.
And not only that, a calling card where you've written a song with Madonna,
Sure.
a co-write with Madonna, it's #1 in 13, 14 countries, and then it gets a Grammy nomination, and all of a sudden, I remember getting a text around that time. I was working in a local studio in Northern Ireland on a movie soundtrack, and one of the royalty collection societies in Ireland is called IMRO, and the boss texted me and goes, "Congratulations." And I was like, what's he congratulating me? So I emailed him back, and he sent me the link. And it was Madonna's Celebration gets Grammy nomination, co-written by Irish songwriter Ciaran Gribbin. And it was a...
Must have felt great.
Oh, beautiful feeling. I remember phoning my mum after it, and all my friends were going, "From now on, you will be known as Grammy-nominated songwriter."
Well, that's right. That's how I encourage you. That's fantastic. That is a big break. And did things just sort of did they snowball from there, Ciaran?
Yeah, that was the turning point.
Yeah.
I had a period of 5 years after that which were just beautiful, where it was just movie soundtracks and co-writing sessions for pop stars and up and coming pop stars, and television adverts, and writing to brief for this song, for that movie, for that artist, whatever. And I would spend 14, 15, 16 hours a day in my home studio when I was at home, And then I would fly into London and go into these glorious recording studios and work with these beautiful producers, and it just was a dream come true. And watch, scoring movies and all that sort of stuff. It was just beautiful.
You clearly love songwriting then, and your ego can't be that substantial because you're happy to write songs for other artists.
Yeah, well, I was always very precious when I was younger with regards to the songwriting experience, because it is a very personal experience, and it's almost like spiritual at times, where you're like in this sort of meditative state, where you're just in the zone, and time doesn't matter, and you're there and you're totally present. So it's a very personal thing. It took me until I was really 30 years of age till I fully embraced the songwriting collaboration, co-writing with other people.
Yes.
But was it the best thing I've ever done was start co-writing. It just, because it doesn't matter who you co-write with, the other person always comes at the song or the melody or the lyric from a completely different angle and a headspace. And no matter what I had in my mind of where this song was going to go, or this idea that I started, if there's someone else's input, it always goes off on a different journey, and it's always better, in my opinion, always better than doing it yourself. Two heads are better than one.
Yeah, always learning and always growing. Now, it must have been quite something for you to tour as the singer with our beloved INXS. How on earth did you find yourself there?
Again, right place at the right time. Like I said, I'd almost given up on touring, and I was probably 35 when the INXS thing happened. So I had a good 5 years of in the studio. I was out of the limelight, and Bob, my manager, phoned me up and said, "Look, we have a chance to go and support Paolo Nutini in Australia if you want to go and do this, and I could get you a few support slots here and there, festival slots." And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to. One, I'd gigged with Paolo, the Scottish songwriter, before, and wonderful songwriter, and so we were friends, and so I said, yeah, let's make this happen. So came down and did a festival in Perth and a couple of shows in Melbourne and Sydney with Paolo as support act, and I was sleeping with Bob's sister and her family, their house. I was staying up in the northern beaches and sleeping in their couch. And Andrew Farriss from INXS was a good friend, so every evening when I was staying there, he knew that I was a musician. He'd come around and hang out, and we'd had dinner maybe 3 or 4 nights in a trot, and just hanging out. Beautiful sunny night in Newport, up in the northern beaches.
Absolutely beautiful.
Balcony looking over Pittwater, and I'm like, I'm in heaven. I'm hanging
out.
I'm hanging out with a dude from INXS.
And I'm in Australia. In one of the most beautiful parts.
Yeah, and then we became mates, essentially. But over a period of 4 or 5 nights, eventually the guitar comes out.
Yeah.
We'd listened to a lot of music. He'd played some of his stuff, and I played some of my stuff, and we started singing a few songs together. There was a house party, and after we finished, he asked me would I sing Mystify. That was the song that I wanted to sing. He said, would you sing an INXS song? And I said, yeah, I would love to sing Mystify, which I did. And he looked at me at like 2 o'clock in the morning after I finished singing, and he said, I think you're going to play a role in the future of INXS. And I was like, I think you're drunk. I think you're
very drunk, yeah.
So I went home, and of course we got back into life again, and about 3 or 4 months later got the call from Andrew and said, look, I've been thinking about your music and what you've been doing, and I'd obviously left a bit of an impression on him, and he said, would I come down to Australia again to try and write a few songs together, and maybe if things go to plan, I could sing, try out trial to sing with INXS. And I flew to Australia for 4 days, and we wrote songs and met the boys in the band over barbecue, and then I stood in a little rehearsal space in Sydney and sang all the songs with them. And after 3 or 4 songs, I remember the casualness of it. Tim Farriss just sort of went, you're brilliant, looked at everybody, and they all were sort of nodding, and he goes, the gig's yours if you want it. I was so casual, you know.
Oh wow, that's a great story, Ciaran. That's amazing. I think about all those people because some people may not know. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but there was after Michael Hutchens' death, and when the boys decided they'd finally get the band, back together.
Yeah.
There was a big competition, so every person wanted to be the new Michael Hutchens. Everyone wanted to be lead singer.
Yeah.
Poor old JD Fortune, he got it, but he couldn't quite hang on to it. And you get it because you had a bit of a jam with Andy.
Yeah, it was that easy. All that TV show. I didn't have to go through the whole TV show. I hung out in a balcony and we sang a few songs. It was that simple.
That's fantastic. I guess though, even though it was so much later, you're always in some people's mind taking the place of Michael Hutchens. What were the challenges around that?
Yeah, I remember being very, very anxious at the time, running up to the shows. You learn all of the songs, and I knew a lot of the songs. Obviously, grew up with INXS and loved the band growing up. So in my head, I was like, well, there's no replacing Michael. There's no replacing anyone, essentially. But Michael, as a singer and as a frontman, was particularly good. He literally had everything, the looks, the voice. He could write songs, and he just had that special something. So walking out onto stage, the band were very, very supportive. The first shows I did with them were in Peru and Argentina, and they basically were saying to me, this is the perfect place for you to just be yourself and don't worry about it. But after one or two gigs, and literally I remember the first gig, the nerves had got it out of my system. I walked off stage and cried like a baby, just the sheer emotion of getting it all out of my system. And I really enjoyed the first gig, but the second gig, I had no nerves whatsoever. I remember walking, and it was a massive gig. It was in Buenos Aires in Argentina. So I suppose I just really enjoyed the whole experience, and I didn't try to mimic Michael. I paid respect to him every night and sang the songs that the way I thought they should have been sang, and paid tribute to one of the greats.
Being your authentic self is not always easy to do, but it will win every time, Ciaran. Just being who you are. And now I met you when in the Hunter Valley when you were doing a gig for an exclusive group of 10 people. But I know that gig in Buenos Aires was 30,000 people.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you connect with an audience when it's that big?
It's a whole different skill to work an audience that size. You have to. To me, I would be more nervous, if you like, in a smaller group, in an intimate environment than a bigger group. You just have to be loud and proud and use your arms and big gestures and talk to the back of the back of the audience as much as bottom line, as a performer, that a lot of the time that you've got a spotlight on your face and you literally cannot see 4 rows in front of you. So it's almost like a freeing experience. So you're imagining, but then you do see the lights open up, and it's a wonderful feeling where you see just this ocean of people, and it's going off. Like I remember Suicide Blonde in particular, the very first song, because I'd be standing behind the drum kit on a podium, and the lights would go up, and you just saw this ocean of people bounce in unison. It's pretty special.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. No wonder everybody wants to do it. And I guess you feel you're feeding off the energy of the audience, and that's where the connection is.
Yeah.
I see a successful band just being like, because I work with teams in the workplace, a successful band just being like a successful workplace team. What can our work teams learn from a successful band?
Well, I think one beautiful thing about being in a band is that there's no sort of yes, you have important people. Potentially the singer could be the front of the band, that's the face of it, and obviously the voice of it, but it's a very sort of unifying experience, and that sort of all for one for all attitude. That's why those great bands are successful, because they know that there's no room for, we all have our weaknesses in the band, we all have our strengths, and it's almost like you're sort of my strengths are sort of propping up this guy's weaknesses, and the guy behind me is propping me up. So we're leaning on each other, and it's this wonderful sort of beautiful family-like experience when you're in a band and everything's going great. But also, the most importantly, on stage, that's where you're completely exposed. But when it's going good on stage, there's not a feeling like it on the planet. There's an energy that's running through the band that is very unique. Essentially, the rock star world, there's plenty of ego in there, but when it comes to the band itself, there's nobody better or higher placed than anyone else. We're all on the same level.
So it's very much about respect, knowing each other's skills and strengths, and being able to work with them and prop them up. I can't imagine, for example, if someone was being precious and not holding up their end in, say, a 4 or 5 piece band, it's not going to work.
No, and again, it doesn't work. It literally, a band it literally feels like you're in a band of, it's a family. It really does feel that way. You do look out for each other. You're living in each other's pockets, and being on that stage is just a tiny part of your day. Where usually you're starting your day with that person. You could be, and many times in my experience, we've all been in the same room because we couldn't afford anymore. You know, obviously the INXS thing, but you might have your own room, but you're still getting up at the same time, having breakfast together. You're going to the airport together. You're traveling all day to get your sound checking together. So you get to know all the little intricacies of everybody's personality. So there's no room for ego in the middle of all of that. And if there is, it's kind of stamped out pretty quickly. So it's a total support and one for all for one attitude. It really is. For any other way, it just won't work.
That was the INXS creed, wasn't it? The Band of Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember speaking to Kirk Pengilly about, their success, and he said in the early days in particular, but always they had it. It just was the motto was whatever it takes. So if they had to do 365 gigs a year, that's what they did. And
wow, that's a hard-working band.
Yeah, the work ethic is unbelievable. To be successful in a band, the work ethic has to be unquestionable. It's just, if you're not prepared to pull your weight, just move on. Don't be there, and you will be weeded out quickly. That's why you're seeing Rolling Stones that in their 70s, Mick Jagger still running around that stage, because that work ethic he knows nothing else.
Yeah.
Yes, he might love the singing, the performance, all of it, but it takes a lot of energy to get that fit in your 70s, and that hunger is still there to get up and feel that energy and share and be a part of something.
Share so much.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at work teams, I think that a lot of these same things apply, Ciaran, that you have to be prepared to work, like pull your weight or you're out. Yeah. Respect each other, understand, get inside each other's personality so you get where their strengths and their challenges are, and be a team. Just work together. It's there's a lot of similarities there. Okay, you've grown a really successful business with co-founder Nicole White in just 4 years. So we're still talking about relationships here. What do you think is the secret to success in a business partnership?
I think honesty and knowing your own strengths for one, but also being humble enough to know that you can't do it all. And one of the beautiful things about the relationship I have with Nicole is that we're very, very direct and honest with each other. That's one thing, but also skill sets. I'm happy to roll up the sleeves, do whatever it takes to get done. But Nicole has a very unique set of skills in managing, in sales, in marketing, in just that sort of sales driven thing that she has.
It allows you to be the artist.
And allows me to be the artist. Allows me to do what I do best. And I think one of the things, if you're going to be solo and your own boss, you've the tendency to spread yourself thin over all of these skills. And it's nice to learn all these skills, but it takes so much time. And then you find yourself, you're pulled from pillar to post, keeping these plates spinning all the
For
time.
sure.
So yeah, I think the beauty in our partnership is just the sort of the skills sort of again, it's that weaknesses, Nicole.
Complementary skills.
Yeah, complementary, and,
Yeah.
and I'm filling in the weaknesses on Nicole's side, and she's in mine.
Yeah. Okay. Complementary skills work together, and I also like what you said about being direct.
Yeah.
I often think that women and certain types of people have more indirect language, and I think you kind of don't have time for that. We just need to be direct with respect. So, and then we get more stuff done quickly. I think we waste a lot of time by beating around the bush sometimes, but you have to have a respectful relationship to be able to speak directly without offense, I guess.
Honesty is always the best policy,
Yeah.
even though sometimes it's very hard to hear. But it saves a lot of time in the long run, and it means you're more agile. You can sort of get to the point of what it is you're trying to do a lot quicker and focus on that. But yeah, definitely a healthy respect is a good thing.
Ciaran, one last question about music. What is it about music that has the power to connect us and bring us together?
It's funny, I've been sort of in this new virtual world, I've been sort of focusing a lot on that question because, you know, we're developing a product that's music based and musicians are leading it, but I'm working with a music therapist and Dave Anthony. I'm also working with a neuroscientist, and I think with music, it literally is a direct connection to our emotions.
Yes.
So there's, you know, when everyone, you know, even if I played you a major chord here now, you happy sounding, minor chord, sad sounding, on the simplest level. But we all then have, you know, if you're singing, you're literally releasing dopamine in your brain. So it's the good stuff, endorphins are coming out. But then there's also, it triggers memories. We all have songs that, you know, that takes us back when we were 15 to our first disco or first time we kissed our sweetheart or whatever, got married to, or even on the sad scale. And it's a very underappreciated thing, music. I think we're learning more and more now of the health benefits of it. And I think that it's something that in this day and age in COVID is very, very interesting of all the stuff that's going on the planet. It's one thing that's really beautiful that I'm witnessing is the impact music is having on people in isolation, where everyone is just sort of going to their favorite artist, and you know, and that artist is performing or writing with the people on Facebook Live or whatever. So it's a very powerful tool, music, but it's been in us, like when we were in our mother's womb, we're hearing the heartbeat. We have a beat in ourselves, and it's just, you know, it's such a part of the fabric of who we are as humans. Music, I can't. As a musician, I've seen so many times it change a room for the better or change people. You see the body language where they're in a bad frame, you can tell that person. You play a song and you just see their hands shoot up into the air, and they're walking on the floor to the dance floor, literally punching the air. It's a direct connection to the soul.
All right. So let me, I need to talk to two of you now, Ciaran, the businessman, and Ciaran, the artist. So let me talk to the businessman first, the founder of Rock and Roll Team Building. What does the future hold for you guys? I know you're working on a whole lot of different products. Would you like to give us a quick snapshot of a couple of them for the next 12 months?
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for real gigs and the real world gigs to come back, we've sort of been working on 2 or 3 main products, and we're developing a few others, but the 3 main ones are, if you can imagine, we're doing virtual events, but high-end virtual events. We've teamed up with a very cool venue in Sydney, and also a very cool production company with all the cameras and the bells and whistles. You can imagine TV broadcast quality.
Nice.
And a band in a room, but then working with corporations on the week or two prior to that in helping them develop their own videos, and that could be a song, it could be a cover, it could be a dance or whatever, so that they become, when we get to the event itself, the event's a streaming event, but we're the house band linking all of these pre-prepared videos of performances. So it's a talent show for the corporation. And
fantastic.
It's ran like a variety TV show.
Yeah, I get it.
High quality.
Yeah.
That's our main product. The other product, which will take longer to get up and running, but we're working on, we've sort of formed an advisory board of specialists, and it's a health and well-being product. It's a 12-week product, which we work with teams. A musician can take teams of 10, and over a period of 10 weeks, we will write 10 different songs and talking about the people, how music can really help with their health and well-being, and just general bringing joy into people's lives.
I like that, the gift of joy. Okay, and for Ciaran the artist, I know that you recently released a song, Hey Misery, that I had the pleasure of watching and listening to on YouTube, which is fantastic. I really enjoy it. Tell me what's in store for you, Ciaran.
Well, thanks. Look, I have found in this time of the lockdown a little bit more time to sort of go back and sort of scratch that itch of a songwriter and release material. So over the next sort of 12 months, I'm not holding myself or I'm trying to do one song a month or anything like that. I'm just finishing products that I maybe started 3, 4, 5 years ago, remixing them and collaborating with new sort of producers in the Sydney area. And online, people as far away as San Francisco and Dublin and London. I want to sort of get involved with really cool artists again and release stuff under my own name, but also, develop younger artists and help, get them on their feet and co-write. So collaborations in the music world is something that's coming up.
So it seems like there is plenty on the boil for Ciaran Gribbin in the future, that's for sure. You spoke so much today about collaboration, and it was funny that I know that when you were younger, it was more of an ego thing, and you've mentioned collaboration in so many ways. So let's take that away, to collaborate with teams, to look for other partnerships, to maybe think outside the square, as some of us are looking for new roles, new things to do post-COVID, or as we emerge from it, to look for ways that we can collaborate and connect and work with other people. I think definitely to enjoy the good times. We've loved your stories about INXS, and I think many of us want to be rock stars, are all a little bit jealous of what you have had, but it is just wonderful to be hearing all your stories, and thank you for so generously sharing all of that in your time. And I just had one more question for you, Ciaran. Why did Bono fall off the stage?
Hang on a second, because he got too close to the edge.
Boom. Oh, that's funny. All right. Where can we find more on Ciaran Gribbin and Rock and Roll Team Building, please?
Both the websites, rockandrollteambuilding.com and ciarangribbin.com.
Okay. All right. We'll put all of those up in the show notes. Ciaran, it has been a delight. Thank you for sharing a bit of you, for your stories, for being willing to be vulnerable, and for your knowledge.
Thank you, Lynn. It was a pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Now, if you like what you've heard, you may like my program Working with People You Just Don't Get. So in this, we determine what your behavioural preference is for: apple, mango, lime, or banana. Once we do that, we look at the strengths and challenges of each and how we can work more effectively together. Because when we do, we have less stress, we have greater productivity, and we get better results all round. Now, the program comes in many forms. You can choose a webinar. You may like a video with a live Zoom Q&A after it. If you're all back in the workplace together, there's a lovely video training series that you can run yourself. Perhaps you'd like to book me post-COVID for a face-to-face workshop or a conference gig, or maybe just take a look at the book, Bite Me at Other Do's and Don'ts of Dealing with Our Differences. Now, all this and more can be found on my website, lynscanella.com.au, and you can also do a taster of the quiz there to get a feel for what you are. Now, if you've liked what you've heard, please like us, subscribe, leave a review. That would be awesome. I am on Facebook, Insta, and LinkedIn, so please join me there so we can stay as connected as possible in this weird and wonderful world in which we live. Respect, connect, thrive. I'm Lynn Scanella, and this has been Fruitful Conversations.